Later, we're asking if dog owners should have to have licences and whether teenagers should be banned from gaming altogether. Let's talk about Mr Jenrick, though. Has he gone too far? 0207 862 2222. So he's the Tory, the leading Tory. He looks to want Kemi Badenoch's job, and he's sort of on manoeuvres. In a recording from March, published by The Guardian, the shadow Justice Secretary called Handsworth in Birmingham one of the worst integrated places he'd ever been to. He also said he'd not seen another white face in the hour and a half he was there. He's doubled down on those comments and said it is a very dangerous place if we have a country where people are living in ghettoised communities, where people are not living together side by side in harmonious communities. We've seen the damage that can do in our society. Yesterday, he spoke to Sky News. He said the media were trying to shut him down.
We have been having this debate off and on for decades, and every time people try and raise these issues in a fair and reasonable way, with all due respect, journalists like you pop up and try and knock those people down. And that is the reason why we don't live in an integrated country.
It's not my opinion necessarily,
is it? I mean, why,
Robert, because it's also
the reason why
the mayor
terrorist attacks
of the West Midlands said,
because people are not stepping up and taking the action that's needed.
People, I think this may be unfair, but on social media saying journalists like you, and the interviewer is black, and then you're thinking, well, is that a reference to his ethnicity?
Yeah, look, I don't see an issue with saying your anecdotal experience. If he looked around and didn't see another white face, I don't have any issues with that. It's the thing that he said after. That's not the kind of country I want to live in. And I think it was reckless of how he said it. But then let's look at the history. When Asians and people from the Caribbean who were black came here in the 40s and the 50s, we massively tried to integrate and we were shunned. So we spent decades trying to integrate. We weren't allowed to get mortgages. We weren't given jobs. We were... my mother and her brothers were not allowed to play with the white children, even though she's half white and half Pakistani. So let's look at why there's a lack of integration, number one. And number two, I currently live in Essex, and there was a massive wave of white people who moved from North London, where I grew up, as soon as there were migrants. So then I want to ask white people, why did you leave then? If there's no white people around, maybe it's your fault. Why did you leave the city?
Keegan, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think it's dog whistle from Robert Jenrick, appealing to the people on the right, bemoaning a lack of white faces. I think Lynn said, integration works both ways. He's been part of a Tory government that has had austerity in this country since they came in, which looks at defunding the things that cause integration, language programmes, community programmes, sports and arts programmes.
Well, they were trying to avoid borrowing to spend, but yeah, maybe they got it wrong.
But the problem with this is he's said that integration means being white. He's not talked about what languages were being used, what people were doing, the signage, the words.
It's funny because you both agree on this, obviously.
Not his first point, though. I don't think it is wrong to say. I don't see.
You don't mind him saying it?
Yeah. If I was a white working class person still in a city and I saw no one or very seldom people that look like me, I do think that's wrong when the majority of the country is white. When you go to places like Barbados, or would he say the same in South Africa? There's majority areas of white places in South Africa. That's also wrong. Would Robert Jenrick go to South Africa and say this is Africa? The majority should be black people,
Yeah, because South Africa is 15% white, so that's clearly.
Would he say the same thing in South Africa?
And the equivalent of Birmingham in South Africa is probably Cape Town. So that is the main majority white city. Yeah.
But the issue with this is there are cities with ethnic communities up and down the country, Bradford, Leicester, Birmingham, to name a few. And he said, people have been talking every time someone raises it, but he's equated it to the colour of their skin, what integration is. And that isn't what integration is.
But he just wants to be able to talk about it. This is the key thing. He says, to the interviewer, regardless of whether the interviewer is black or white, he just says, you people are trying to shut us down,
they
right?
should be shut down.
Yeah, well, that's the issue.
But
you think he should say
it? He's not talking about it. That's disingenuous of Robert Jenrick to say, I'm trying to talk about it. He's just said, I didn't see a white face for 90 minutes.
Is he right to raise it?
But he's not raising it. It's just that he knows exactly, he's a politician, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's
is
saying
disingenuous. He
something
wouldn't have said
to get a
this 5
rise
years
out
ago.
of people who will go, yeah, there's not enough white people in this country, send them back, all that kind of crap.
I mean, I was on the Daily Mail website last night, or maybe the Telegraph, I can't remember, and it said, do you think he's right to raise it, right? And yes, no. And I think, well, I wasn't sure which one to go because I want to see the results. I go no, but it's, whatever. Yeah. And 9% said no. 91% said, yes, he's right to raise it. So you guys are off being
this is because a lot of working class white people feel that they have been silenced in their own country.
Exactly.
And
that's why he's raising it. OK, James in Shropshire, is he right to raise it?
Yeah. Hello there, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on. Now, straight away, I will say I don't have any party allegiance whatsoever. He may have went too far, but he was right to an extent. Now, I want to take you back to the 50s and 60s where I grew up. I grew up in Manchester. A lot of my friends were black. Integration was really good after the terrible Windrush years. It was really good. But the one thing that everybody tends to miss here, and this is where he's right, but everybody's scared to say it, you have these areas now, sadly, where religion comes into it. And I'm talking about Islam in particular. Now, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in any religion. I think all religious people, or people who believe in religion, are not very clever, I'm afraid. Today, there are certain areas around this country where a lot of Islamic people gather together, and they do not, unfortunately, integrate as well as my black friends in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem. People are fearful a little bit of mentioning the religious side of it, but unfortunately, I see it all the time.
Well, you raise a good point, whether the danger now is groups of people who are together on the basis not of their race, but their religion.
I think it's also to do with language and maintaining culture. People don't say, would you say this, James, would you say the same thing if you went to Southall that isn't Muslim but mainly Indian? Would you say this if you went to Golders Green or Stamford Hill where it's a heavily Jewish population? Would you say the same thing there?
Well, I do remember in Manchester, Cheetham Hill, it was a very big Jewish population, but integration was pretty good,
Yeah, but she's asking you a different question, James. She's asking you a different question. She's saying, would you say the same thing if it was Jewish people and not Muslims?
I would. I think I would.
OK, so any sort of religious...
Can I just add here that... It's a fact, and sadly, it's a fact in the way we are today that people are too fearful in many respects of speaking about religion. Now, as I say, I'm an atheist, so I don't have any, I don't believe in any religions, but I do see it, the Islamic religion has been more of a problem than most other religions.
OK. All right, thank you. I mean, that shades into a different thing, which
I think something that's important to remember when we're talking about integration is that integration is not assimilation. It's not becoming like the people who are all around you. You're allowed to maintain your heritage and your faith and...
But there's a lot of people who think multiculturalism just is an absolute figment of the liberal mind. It never worked. It's not a real thing.
But the same people
I'm saying that because part of that, this is what he wants us to speak about.
You said something interesting earlier. You said integration, which is what is the buzzword now, is a two-way thing. There are so many initiatives in mosques up and down the country which, regularly cook and give food out. I want to ask these people, do you go into the mosque and say, I'd like to try some of the food? OK, after the break, we'll take some more calls on this. Has Robert Jenrick gone too far? Saying he couldn't see any white faces in Birmingham. At the moment, we're going to take more calls on whether you think Robert Jenrick has gone too far with his comments about Birmingham. But let's speak to a friend of the show, Labour MP for Birmingham, Erdington, Paulette Hamilton. So, Paulette, what do you think of these remarks?
Can I start by saying I think it was irresponsible of an MP, a national MP, to go into an area for 90 minutes. The fact that he went into the area for 90 minutes to look at something else, and because he hadn't seen a white face, to make those presumptions. I was born there. I grew up there. I know a lot of people there. I have been a councillor in the area for 18 years. I can take him to white people. My mom still lives in the area. She has an African next door to her, a Pakistani. She has a Sikh man across the road. She has a Tim and his family. They're white. She has Afro-Caribbean, and they are one big family. They are integrated and they look after each other. What what Jenrick should be thinking about is the 14 years he was actually in power. How much investment did they give to areas like that to help them? And they still managed to succeed, even without the help and support from the Conservative government. I am furious at this because he could have used this platform, and if he wanted to start the discussion, at least spend a couple of days in the area. Somebody like myself who knows the area well, ask for a guided tour. There are people there from the bid. There's the temples, the churches. They would have happily shown him around. I'm furious that he has labelled my city, my area that I grew up in, as slum. Nonsense. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and it is racist because he's looked at colour.
Paulette, stay with us. David is in Somerset. Do you think he's being racist, David? No, David, I'm sorry. Leanne is in Birmingham as well as Paulette. Do you think he's been racist, Leanne?
Absolutely. It's highly problematic. I'm from Birmingham, not far from Handsworth. And I think for a white, middle-class, right-wing man to walk into Handsworth, spend a very short amount of time there and call it a slum and criticise it for not having enough white people is highly problematic.
OK, let me bring in Charles in Birmingham. Charles, do you agree with that?
Well, I'm a white Indigenous person, native of Birmingham, and I'm sorry, but we all feel really threatened now. We're frightened to go into the centre of Birmingham. And it's not just Handsworth, it's Spark Hill, Bordsley Green. All these areas have been completely taken over, and we do feel threatened when we go into those places. My neighbour went into Spark Hill the other week, and he was actually told by an Asian that he wasn't welcome there and to get out of the area.
And how long have you had these feelings, Charles?
Sorry?
How long have you had these feelings?
For quite a long time. I've lived in Birmingham now for 20 years, but we've seen it steadily get worse.
Well, yeah,
My wife used to go to a local school here when it was all white. Now you don't see a single white pupil.
OK, let me bring Paulette. OK, Paulette, you come and respond to that if you can.
Well, it's unfortunate that he thinks like that. As a local councillor in Handsworth, I'm not talking about Sparkhill or other areas. You've brought me on here to talk about Handsworth. If I felt the area was unsafe for my mum, who anybody that knows me, she's known as the Queen. And if I felt it was unsafe for my mum wouldn't be living there. When I was there, just before the
Paulette, he's saying it's unsafe for him as a white man.
It's just not true, and they are so. And it is not Handsworth he's talking about.
Hang on, Lynn May.
I just want to say it's horrible that he does feel that way, but some of the issues we're facing is they feel that their feelings are dismissed. And when I've experienced racism, and when, my black family have experienced racism and my Pakistani family have experienced racism, we don't like it when our feelings are dismissed. So I understand where you're coming from, but he's just said what he experiences and what he feels, and we can't continue to dismiss it just because he's white.
I think we would ask why do you feel unsafe? Because if you're saying, I feel unsafe because I'm walking through an area where there's
let's ask him. Charles, why are you feeling unsafe just because of the colour of other people's skin?
No, it's nothing to do with colour at all. I mean, believe it or not, the Sikhs don't get on with the Muslims. I don't think the Caribbeans really get on with the Muslims. I mean, I do have friends in my road that are Caribbean, and, I'm definitely not racist. It's just that when we're overwhelmed completely...
But what are you overwhelmed by?
Well, you try driving through Spark Hill and Bordsley Green, you literally do not see a white Indigenous Birmingham.
But you've just said it's nothing to do with the colour of their skin.
To do with race. But I don't want to dismiss you, Chuck. But Paulette, I know you're talking. Sorry, you come in now.
It is being conflated because in Handsworth, the largest community may be Pakistani, they're 25%, but we have 23% Sikh Indian in Handsworth. We've got 10% Bangladeshi, 16% Black and Afro-Caribbean, 10% mixed, and 9% white community. The white community is the lesser community, but most of the white people I know, and I would be happy to take people to meet them, they do not feel threatened in the area. They help, they do litter picking like every other community. They watch out for the elderly in the area. They look after each other. Let me say, there are challenges because it's a challenging area, but culturally they do mix very well.
Okay, Paulette.
And I won't have it that the Muslim community don't mix with anybody else, because it's just not true.
All right, Paulette, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it on your busy day. More calls. We've got so many people calling about this. Was Robert Jenrick right to raise it? He might have been wrong. Was he at least right to say that's how he felt? He didn't see a white face in Birmingham. 0207 862 2222 is the number you need. We'll see you soon. Let's get straight back into the calls because we've got so many people on the Robert Jenrick story. So obviously, Tory conference, he wants to be leader. It's pretty obvious. And he's really on manoeuvres. And he said this thing about Birmingham. He didn't see a white face. Daniel in Nottinghamshire, justifiable to say it?
Morning, Jan. So I agree with what Keegan was saying earlier, that it seems like he seems to be stirring the pot. He's stirring this big. It's like he's one of the witches of Eastwick. He's got a big pot and he's just stirring it. And what I think he's going to do is cause people to protest and to moan. And
the thing is, if people think this, but they don't hear politicians saying it, the argument is that that's where all the trouble starts, because then you get riots.
The problem is, I do TikTok and YouTube. I do videos on TikTok and YouTube, and if I were to say anything like that, I'd be cancelled. I'd be cancelled straight away. Just because he's an MP, does he feel like he has this trump card that he can play? I can say what I want and get away with it. I don't. He should be.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point. This. Thank you, Daniel. If I went into the office and I said, "Oh, I was in Birmingham, I didn't see a white face there," everyone would go,
"No." But the issue is not the raising of a point. The issue is how it's raised and actually coming up with a solution. Because all he's done is gone, here's a problem, go argue about it.
In fairness to him, it was something he said in some sort of dinner, and it was tape recorded, probably without his knowledge, last March, and it's just come out. Right. But he has then kind of doubled down because he's defended it.
Down on it,
yeah. Jason's in Liverpool. Was he within his rights to say it, Jason?
Well, having been in Birmingham, and I had a black girlfriend, and I've been in Birmingham for quite a while, he was only stating the obvious. It wasn't racist. So if anyone goes to Birmingham whatsoever, they will notice if they're white like me, like a snowman, you are a minority. So white people are a minority in Birmingham, not just that particular part.
But Jason, think about this point of view. Is it a problem because he's presenting it as a problem, not just a fact? And secondly, he is working for Kemi Badenoch, who's the leader of the Conservatives, who's black. So isn't it a bit weird to say that?
No. All he's doing, though, is actually he's only pointing out the obvious. He's not doing it as a racial thing. I dare anyone to go to Birmingham and who is white and not think that they are a minority.
Okay, well, there we are. It's culture, not race. That's the key.
It was the slum part. The thing that is a bit frustrating is it's more about class and poverty. If you go to certain parts of northern England where there aren't many black or Asian people, there are still deprived slum-like areas. So I don't know why he connected white and slum-like or ghettoisation. But also, I just think it was a stupid move by someone who is trying to gear towards being the leader. Even Nigel Farage is not that silly because he said, so many people now are being born to people from Asian backgrounds or the Muslim vote. There are many wealthy Muslims that actually do vote Conservative. Well, are they going to continue to do that?
Well, shock. Tory looks down his nose at a poorer area.
Well, gosh, now I feel I got to add balance, What would you say to that? Are Tories posh and cut off?
No, I think
snooty.
I think we've moved on from that. There are many ethnic minorities.
Well, hang on a minute. Thatcher was the archetype of the Tory working class Tory, wasn't she?
And that's why many people who would have never been able to buy their property were able to do so because of Thatcher. But also, many ethnic minorities are doing phenomenally well. So they're going to vote with the intention of trying to retain their money and their assets.
OK, I wonder, Keegan's talking about, how right-wing they are. Maybe he's trying to go to the right of reform. That's what he wants. So you get reform plus a bit of extra edge. Jason, thank you. Lillian in Essex, hello.
Hello, good morning. cast your mind back to the King's coronation. A lady actress sat here afterwards and remarked that the royal family was very white.
That was our friend who, Adjua, yeah, she was on.
Yeah,
I think she
right,
probably was
okay.
taken out of context, but yeah. And
Yeah,
people
there was
pointed
a lot
out, well, it's not their fault, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of complaints about it, but it was held up not to be racist. I agree with he was allowed. He can say that if that's what he saw, then he's allowed to say it.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Nick in Devon, do you think he should be saying it?
Hi, hello, Jeremy and panel. No, I don't think he really should be. I mean, you know, I've got to say, you know, the integration cuts both ways, or if not always, perhaps I should say. I mean, the thing is, he used Birmingham to illustrate what he thinks is a problem. Yeah, I mean, if he was truly and honestly concerned about integration, he would have included possibly other perhaps areas, perhaps in the south or southwest.
What about like Kensington that's full of Russians, for example?
Well, or you could, you know, you walk down the street in, I don't know, in Exeter or sort of Plymouth or something, possibly, and you won't see a black face. So why did he do that? Well, why did he?
Well, have a think about why he might have mentioned Birmingham, not Exeter. Have a think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, Nick, he's not mentioned Exeter because he doesn't see Exeter has the same issue.
Well, but the thing is, if he's talking about integration, I mean, he really needs to talk about integration.
Oh, I see, all white
towns.
Yeah. All right, yeah. Sunderland as an example.
Yeah, but it's majority white country.
Yeah,
that's the issue. I think many white people are seeing, you know, their historical towns no longer look how they were, but that's what migration does.
Yeah, and it's maybe a great thing.
And also with integration cuts, the call said it then, cuts both ways. I grew up on a council estate in West Yorkshire, which was white, and people would move on who were Asian, who were black, whatever minority, and they would get harassed, they would get things thrown at the windows, put through, and so they would move away and they would move to places. Yeah, exactly.
We tried to integrate.
It works both ways. Yeah. So you can't then complain and go, oh, everyone who's brown lives together. Well, treat them nicer.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your calls on that. Wow, a lot coming in on Jenrick.